Hey everyone, welcome back for another segment of Wifey Wednesday. I say another segment, it's actually our second segment. How are you, sweetheart?
I'm doing great.
Make it sound like
Fun
we've got
to be here again.
like this whole library of Wifey Wednesdays. This is number 2, and gosh, I want to start by saying...
Number 2? Whoa.
I want to start off by saying thank you, everyone. The response that we had from last week's show, oh my gosh. The love, the encouragement, all the things that you shared, thank you. It meant a lot to us.
Yeah, it really did, and humbling. So thank you.
You know, one of the things that we've already had people giving us requests, and a really great request came in around the whole idea. This is something we want to focus on today, because I think every relationship that has ever happened has had the beginning when falling in love was just, oh my gosh, I was so into things and they couldn't do anything wrong, and I was on my game, and just, you know, the sparks were flying.
The lust.
The lust was real.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we went from being the falling in love state to trying to stay in love state. And I've always thought about this with us, honey. We're going from falling in love to standing in love, which is really the key, I think, to keeping relationships strong, sustainable, fun, sexy, and all the things that you want to do, is to make sure that you have practices that help you stand in love. Because what's really interesting is when you look at the chemistry of falling in love, it is very dopamine centric.
Yeah, totally. So you think of things like, well, I don't know why cliff jumping just came to mind, but I was thinking of, social media actually is a better example. So you're looking for those likes, it's that dopamine hit, it's that rush, it's that high. I mean, it kind of is like jumping off a cliff too, because it's like, whoa, your dopamine levels go off the chart. And it's same thing with falling in love, and you're making out nonstop, and it's like raising your dopamine, and it's so exciting. And you just can't wait until you see this new love person next, until it starts getting, let's just say, old, repetitive, habitual, and you're trying to find new ways to find that spark, that dopamine hit, that high.
Yeah. And listen, I mean, dopamine is a powerful chemical. It's very addictive, and it's something that really does feel good when it's happening. And I think one of the challenges we have is when we're in that relationship, right? And all of a sudden you get a few months on your belt or a few years, and then that person may not be feeling as attractive as they used to, or you have lost the motivation, which is also a big part of dopamine, to be that person who's present, to be that person who's still dating your person, to be that person who's engaged to that same degree you were when dopamine was running the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you remind me often, and I really appreciate it, things that we can do, that you do especially well, to help move that dopamine hit into what sustains that lasting love, which is more oxytocin based. So both really powerful neurotransmitters and hormones and producers of feeling good inside the body. But how we move that needle and create sustaining relationships. And I would add, not just spousal relationships, but friendships, familial relationships. Obviously, I'm taking out that lust comment that I made when it comes to these other relationships. But a lot of relationships start off with that high. I mean, think about new parenthood, when you just can't get enough. You know, that new baby, you're so excited, and then they become teenagers, and you're like, oh, what happened to that?
Where did the dopamine go?
Where did the dopamine go? Where'd the oxytocin go?
Yeah.
Really? So anyway, you were a proponent of the Gottman research, and for those of you who don't know, the Gottman Institute is like the quintessential relationship go-to therapy.
Right.
I guess you could say. They do trainings, they offer workshops, and they have a lot of great foundational approaches to relationship. And I would say, again, not just love partnership relationships, but that really apply across the board.
Yeah. So if anyone here is listening today is going, yeah, I know what it feels like to fall in love, and I've had those experiences where standing in love has been a challenge. That's what today is really all about. We want to make this really practical, because we've been together over 30 years and we had an amazing falling in love experience. And standing in love is always a challenge. I don't care how awesome your falling in love experience was. Standing in love is the way in which we sustain, the way in which the care, the love, the respect, the trust make sure that absolutely is engaged as a foundation. And it is a foundation of every great relationship. So one of the things I want to talk about regarding the Gottman Institute is that they literally have had this one study, right, where he can, is his name, is it John?
I think so.
It's John Gottman, and he's the kind of the head of the thing, and he literally has this distinction where Dr. John, he can watch a couple in as little as like 5 minutes, watch the way they engage, watch the way they talk to each other, even watch their body language, and he can tell you within a 90% accuracy whether or not that relationship is going to last. 90%. He's right 90% of the time by literally spending a few minutes watching some mannerisms. So we're going to share some of that with you today because it's really, really interesting, because we read that research just recently. We're going, oh my gosh, that's something we do, or that's something we can do better. That's something, wow, we've been with couples and they don't do any of that. And then sometimes we go, remember that couple when they were together and now they're no longer together? So one of those things about this idea of going from dopamine, which is motivation and it feels awesome and all the tingling is going on, moving into oxytocin is where trust is the foundation. And what we want to talk about today is how it is that that trust can be something that's connected deeply to Gottman's research and something practical that we can do every single day. So he talks about one thing that I really love is that he has this 5-to-1 ratio where for every 5 things you talk to your spouse about, or your partner, or your lover, 5 things that are complimentary, encouraging, and loving and supportive, to every 1 thing you may say that's not necessarily so nice or encouraging or supportive. And he said that ratio is literally the hallmark of a sustained, high trust, high loving relationship.
And you are much better than I about that in terms of the acknowledging, appreciating. And I was doing a little research in prep for talking about this today. And, you know, we've talked about, or you have in the Treehouse, about gratitude journaling. It's certainly kind of a cliche at this point, but we know the positive effects of gratitude. But in that journaling and in that gratitude process and piece, that even if you can just take one thing to appreciate in your journal about your spouse, that then grows and builds upon each other. And again, I said spouse, it could be any relationship. It could be a friendship, it could be your parent, it could be your child, it could be your sibling. It could be a coworker. Like, say you're struggling with a coworker, can you find one thing to appreciate versus all those criticisms you were talking about? And write it down, because what you write down, kind of, you are calling in. So what you appreciate appreciates, and so that's really good key. And I'm gonna get better.
You know what? You're great at it. And I think one of the things that we all really know is opportunistic for us is that when we get comfortable with people, we sometimes can get lazy. And one of the things that Gottman talks about, and I think it's something we can all relate to. And sweetheart, you and I this is something, I mean, what we really know about our relationship for the last 30 years is that you can get so comfortable that lazy, that sort of insidious sort of, well, I'm so comfortable, she knows I care, or he knows that I think he looks great. And we think it, but we don't speak it. And here's what's really interesting. When we think it, it generates very little oxytocin. It gives it a little bit of a bump. But when we speak it, it literally exponentially raises the oxytocin for you. So that level of trust, that level of warmth, that level of connection for you is going up. But here's what's really amazing. For your partner, for your friend, for your lover, it goes up exponentially even higher. So it's speaking that appreciation, that gratitude, that acknowledgement that really cements that level of trust foundation. And when you do it and you remind yourself, it's like dating all day long. That's what I really love about it. It's not that special in the sense like, hey, we're going out next week and we're going to really build a campaign around that. Why aren't we dating all day long? Why aren't we taking the time to notice when your person looks amazing, or your person that makes you feel something? Because when we date throughout the day, that oxytocin is continually finding its way in, laying down the foundation of standing in love.
I'm definitely guilty of thinking, oh, he already knows that I appreciate it. He knows I think he's so handsome and good looking. And I don't speak it as often as I'm thinking of it because I assume that I think that. So that's just silly right off the bat. And then the other thing that I feel guilty that I do is that you're really good at complimenting me, appreciating me. And then I think, well, now if I appreciate you, it's just going to sound like I'm just doing it because you did it. So what about that? Like, I'm trying to be better about being the first person without forcing it, of course, but being the first person to recognize and appreciate, even if it's like, thank you for taking out the trash, thank you for feeding the dog, even though you feed the dog every day. How do I get better at that?
And can I just have a little bit of a riff for everybody, because I think this is so great. I think what's really great, and this is gonna probably sound sexist, it may even make somebody mad at me for saying this, but here's something I really know in my life, and this is something to come back to you and how much I appreciate you. My wife, Deborah, and I'm sure many people out there have that role in their relationship, husband, wife, lover, partner, whoever it might be. That person who just kind of carries most of the things. They're the person who is the person who is cleaning the toilets. They're the person who is, sending that card out, and all you have to do is just sign it because they took care of everything else. But the other person, that would be me. Hey, honey, I'm gonna clean the toilet, and I'll make an announcement about it because I know that under the radar, you're doing like everything.
Oh, that is the best. The best one, like the partner who doesn't normally do the things empties the dishwasher. It's like you've been emptying the dishwasher for 30 years and never announcing it. The time that your partner empties it, it's like, hey, I emptied the dishwasher.
Is there anything else I can do? It's like, so I think I just want to.
But see, by acknowledging it, you have been cleaning the toilets more often.
I'm on a jam right now. In fact, I don't have to announce it because I'm so psyched about doing it. I get really into it. So I think that's a really good, important thing because, honey, you do so many things that that exchange of you going, oh, honey, you did this, or you look great, or whatever. You're doing these other things that are just absolute. They keep our life moving forward.
Thank you for saying that. Well, I would like to say also how this carries into other types of relationships, and it's as simple as writing thank you notes. So we are huge thank you note people because it brings us joy in that level of appreciation. We have our best friends, we do it back and forth, even when we just have a dinner together or we're at each other's houses, we're sending love note texts the next day, and most often a written card or note of some nature. And so I think we've ingrained is a strong word. My dad ingrained that in my behavior.
And my mom ingrained it in me.
In our kids. And I love receiving thank you notes from the kids because they're so beautiful. And your mom, oh my gosh, she writes the best notes. No detail is left unsaid. And how that makes me feel when we receive those, any kind of words of appreciation from a friend, it just kind of strengthens the bond that much deeper.
Yeah, and not to overplay oxytocin, everyone, but that is an oxytocin channel. A thank you note is unbelievably powerful. So with friendship groups, your community, the people in your circle, do not allow dopamine to dull those relationships. Find the ways in which you can facilitate that same level of appreciation and kindness, because we are always better together. And I think for a lot of the things happening in the epidemic of loneliness, a lot of it's because we've kind of let our guard down and we've gone on automatic pilot and we're not putting the energy and the effort and the intention in to those relationships beyond our primary person relationship. So one thing I want to share before we wrap things up, and this is really interesting too, and I think it's a perfect example. Gottman also talks about when you are with your person and you're having a difficult time, that he can also tell how much that relationship is really struggling with trust and really defensiveness being the thing that kind of separates you with your partner. When you have a hard conversation coming or you need to have a confrontation, you can just talk honestly and vulnerability is really upfront for you. The people who can do that and turn towards their person that they want to have that difficult, challenging talk with, the vulnerability, the real opening space, when we turn towards that person and not turn away, he talks literally about when our knees move towards your person while you're doing that versus when you turn away and you may still be having a talk, but your body has already kind of turned away. Physiologically, that has incredibly devastating impact on trust. And over time, if we are continually turning away, moving away from the hard things, even though we maybe think we're listening, we're trying to be present, our body says everything to our partner. And neurochemically, we are either building more bridges of trust, we're creating more connection for that ability to let that be a channel, or it's continually being eroded. And over years, this is an area that I came into, my trauma response and needing not to have to explain myself when I wasn't being the person I would have loved to been, or being found out for not being as up as I could have been in the level of trust and authenticity. That was such a defense place for me. And I'd get super defended and defensive when you would say something to me like, hey, honey, that isn't going to work. Or, honey, you need to tell me how you're feeling. And my trauma response was always like body move away. I would do my best to kind of be present. But man, this has been the greatest work of my life, to continually find myself pulling back in, moving towards my person. And same thing with my kids, same thing with people that I love and care about. All of this is a huge part of how body creates mind, and mind leads into emotion.
Yeah, I was just getting those powerful visuals of it's so much easier to just walk away, right? We've probably all experienced that, someone walking away from us when we're just wanting to get through whatever we're trying to get through. Confrontation with our partner, with our children, with a friend, with a boss, a coworker. Like, confrontation's really tough. And it's funny because if you're watching this versus just listening, there was a second when I was like this, turning away, listening because I knew we were talking about this, but I actually had taken some notes. So I was looking at the notes. And so these are more like tips for taking those small moments of connection when it may be like hard, but it will really strengthen the relationship over time. And it's just the most simple things like mindful listening and paying attention to your attempts to kind of heal whatever the issue is that we're dealing with.
Can we just stop on that for a moment?
Yeah.
I think all of us, if we've been with our partner long enough and we have been paying attention, we know those trauma places in our partner. We know those places of vulnerability. Our goal isn't to expose them. Our goal in relationships is to help heal them. So if we know there's a space inside of your partner, your person, that you know is, oh man, this is a place that's vulnerable, this is a hard place, we need to use our standing in love energy to really help that to be seen and to be felt and to be acknowledged and to be compassionately connected to. Thank you for getting that one. That's a big one. I think being interested to that degree in your partner, that you know that's an area of challenge and concern, and bringing your love into that space to help heal it with each other, that's big.
And sometimes, when you put someone on the spot and they need to walk away, I think it's valid because sometimes you do need space and time.
Certainly.
But I think it's really important to say, you know what? Right now, I need a minute to kind of recollect my thoughts, and I really want to do this, but right now can you give me some time, and set a specific time when you're going to come back to address whatever this is, where you can be present and mindful to do the tough conversation, the tough work, as long as you have it. I'm not just walking away from you right now. I want to do this. I don't have it right this second. And when you've been put on the spot and someone asks you a question, you're like deer in headlights. It's okay to take time. You don't have to say, yes, I'm just going to be right where you're at the same time every time. Right? Yeah,
that's huge. And I think for all of us who are in relationship or looking at past relationships where you go, wow, I wonder what happened there, or why didn't it work out? I think so much of this is really honoring where you are in those experiences, whether or not you have it within you to go vulnerable, to go deep. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, you at least can say, hey, I'm not there right now.
Yeah.
I love you. I know this means a lot to you, but I'm not there right now. And then you say, but I want to come back to this. I want to be that much more thoughtful.
Yeah.
And frankly, I want to be that much more courageous that I can actually stand in love with you and work through whatever this is. This is a big, big part of why dopamine is an interesting, beautiful, exciting chemical that really kind of is the thing that brings us together initially in so many relationships. But the thing we can work on every single day is how oxytocin, building trust, having those micro moments of resonance. And I think that's one thing I'd love to kind of add just before we say goodbye.
I have one more thing.
Oh, you do too? Okay. So there's a whole thing about how people say, well, we don't have the time we used to together. No, we don't have the quality and the quantity we used to. Here's something I want everyone to know. You can have drive-by love all day long. You see your partner in the kitchen, you're getting ready to go to work, you're running by somebody that you love and care about. It's taking as little as 3 to even 5 seconds, eye contact, smile, something that really sends the message. I see you, I love you. They call that micro moments of heart resonance. Huge oxytocin booster, but one of the most powerful things that we can do to keep love going when we're not together. Leaving people under the impression of that little micro moment of connection will carry you 8, 10, 12 hours. So when you're back together again, the last thing that you had together was that micro moment of connection. And that's what was actually felt when you said goodbye. And it's the first thing we feel is that trust and connection when we say hello again.
Oh, I love that. That is perfect. And this is what I wanted to leave you with. It's a little challenge. And because I know if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, that you probably engage on social media. So the challenge is to, whether you're in a community group or you're on Nextdoor, send out, shout out an appreciation to the community, to a friend, to an acquaintance, to your partner. Just acknowledge someone, someplace, a group, a community, a friend, publicly. Just an appreciation, and see what happens. See what grows in your heart. See what kind of response you get. Because I promise, I'm sure that you're gonna make someone's day and change it for the better, and at the same time you're gonna grow in gratitude and appreciation at the same time.
Oh my gosh, thank you for that.
Yeah,
I could go on for a long, long time, but I want to honor everyone's time here today. But that's a really beautiful thing to think about. Right now, culture and communities are being stressed, they're being stretched. There's a lot of dynamics that are going through where values are being challenged and we're wondering where our people are. There's a lot to be said around the idea of building trust right now, no matter where you are, what country you live in. And it is a human need to have oxytocin being the primary thing that you are putting forth into the world. We build it through trusting ourselves by watching ourselves challenge ourselves to the degree in which we are willing to outlove whatever former story, whatever it is that we feel we can't forgive for. All of this is an opportunity to live in a laboratory of love. So when you walk out in the world, you're carrying that energy, you're carrying that hormone, you're carrying that channel. So anyone who has a blessing of laying eyes on you has an opportunity to grow by simply being in your space.
Yeah, we're bombarded by enough fear and scarcity and negativity. So just be that bright light of positivity for someone to stumble upon, and it's you being you. Living out loud, live in love out loud.
Beautiful. So hey, thanks for joining Wifey Wednesday. Honey, I think we need to have like Wifey Wednesday and Totally Cool Thursday and whatever. Fantastic Friday together, because it is just so awesome to do this with you.
Thank
I mean
you.
that from the depth of my being. I mean, you and I, we're hanging out all day, sharing ideas about things that we're working on, but this is different.
Yeah.
This is serving in the way that I feel makes us really feel like I'm all tingly when we're done. And I feel like this is exactly the work that we have been asked to do. And it's not heavy. It's the work that really makes us to feel like our impact in the world can be that we are growing this together with all of you to be that change we wish to see and be in the world today. So thank you, honey. I love you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
We love you too. Have a beautiful
Peace.
day. Bye for now.